It started at a private party in a rented house just outside Scottsdale. One of those ridiculous, modern things perched on the edge of a desert bluff. Steel beams, floor-to-ceiling windows, and an infinity pool no one swam in but everyone posed beside. A place that looked like it existed solely for filtered Instagram posts and overpriced champagne toasts. It wasn't my scene. It wasn't our scene, or so I thought. Lauren disagreed. "This'll be fun," she said in the car, adjusting her lipstick in the mirror. "We never go out anymore, and it's just a few of my coworkers and their people, nothing crazy." I said nothing, gripping the wheel a little tighter than necessary. I didn't want to argue before we even got there. I just nodded like I always did when she made something sound harmless. We pulled up to a circular driveway filled with black SUVs and Teslas. Lauren hopped out before I even finished parking, already texting someone that we had arrived. She was wearing this backless beige dress I hadn't seen before, the kind that made people stop and stare. I didn't say anything about it, not yet. I wanted to be cool, open, whatever that meant. Inside, the house was buzzing. Music pulsed from hidden speakers in the ceiling, and the air smelled like citrus and candle wax. People clinked glasses filled with lavender cocktails and filtered water poured from glass decanters. I didn't know a single person. Lauren floated in immediately, laughing, hugging, walking with that lightness she used to have when we first started dating. That's what made it sting. I hadn't seen that version of her in a long time. I grabbed a drink from the open bar and tried to catch up, literally and figuratively. But she had already drifted into a conversation near the corner of the living room with a small group. 2 women and a man I didn't recognize. I watched her as she leaned in close, laughing at something he said. The man was tall, maybe mid-30s like us. Tan, sharp jaw, navy blue shirt just tight enough across the chest to let you know he worked out. He had the type of confidence that didn't need an introduction. As I watched, he placed a hand gently on Lauren's lower back, guiding her slightly as she turned toward him. She didn't flinch. She didn't step away. If anything, she leaned in. I felt it then, that sharp, involuntary twist in my gut. The kind you try to ignore at first. The one that tells you, this is wrong. This isn't nothing. I crossed the room slowly, trying not to look like I was walking toward anything in particular. Trying not to look like a husband who was starting to feel replaced. "Hey," I said, joining them with what I hoped passed as a relaxed smile. Lauren barely glanced at me. "Oh, babe, this is Michael. He's in product at the new firm." Michael smiled and stuck out his hand. "Hey, man, I've heard a lot about you." "Funny," I said, shaking his hand a little too firmly. "I haven't heard a thing about you." Michael laughed like I had told a joke. Even though I hadn't, he didn't flinch. He just looked back at Lauren, and I watched something pass between them. A glance that lasted half a second too long. I tried to participate in the conversation, but it was like I wasn't really there. The two of them kept going, bouncing off each other with an ease that made me feel like I just walked into the wrong room at the wrong time. The women drifted off to refill their drinks, and soon it was just the 3 of us. Michael placed a hand on Lauren's arm, brushing something off her shoulder. Something that wasn't there. That was it. I placed my hand gently on the small of her back. Not possessively, just enough to say, "I'm here. Remember me?" And leaned in. "Can we talk?" Lauren turned, her smile slipping just slightly. "What's up? Can we step outside for a sec?" She sighed, looking over her shoulder at Michael. "I'll be right back." Outside, the desert air was dry and cool, a quiet contrast to the buzz inside. The patio lights cast long shadows over the pool and the gravel yard beyond. "What is this?" I asked her, keeping my voice low. "That guy, Michael. He's a little too familiar, don't you think?" She blinked at me like I just accused her of murder. Seriously, I'm not making things up. The way he touches you, the way you respond. Oh my God." She cut me off, folding her arms. "This again? This again? What does that mean?" "It means," she said, her voice rising just a little, "you always do this. The second another guy even looks at me, you go into this whole jealous routine. It's exhausting. He had his hand on you. Multiple times. in front of everyone. It was friendly, she snapped. God, you're tired. You didn't want to come in the first place, and now you're making it about me. I stared at her, stunned. I'm making this about you? Lauren. He was practically undressing you with his eyes and you. And you, she interrupted, are doing that thing again, where you make me feel like I'm not allowed to have friends, or be social, or exist without being accused of something. No one's accusing you. I'm saying it was inappropriate, and I'm not okay with it. She laughed, short, sharp, bitter. Wow. Okay. So I'm not allowed to have fun now unless you're comfortable? It's not about fun, it's about respect. Her smile vanished. So I disrespected you. Got it. I shook my head. That's not what You know what? She said, stepping back. I think you should just go home. Get some rest. I'll Uber back later. That shut me up. I watched her turn on her heel and walk back inside, her heels clicking across the tile. I stood there for a long time, just staring at the glowing windows of the house, where I could see silhouettes of people laughing and moving and drinking, like I didn't exist. I drove home alone that night, windows down, radio off, desert wind blowing in as the Scottsdale lights disappeared behind me. The road felt endless. So did the silence. Lauren came home after 2 a.m. She didn't wake me. I only knew because I heard her heels click against the wood floor, then the soft thud of her purse hitting the kitchen counter. She never came to bed. I found her asleep on the couch the next morning, makeup smudged, one heel still on, her phone clutched loosely in her hand. I didn't say anything, couldn't, but something was different after that night. Something had shifted, and for the first time in our marriage, I started to wonder if I had become invisible. After that night at the Scottsdale house, I couldn't look at Lauren the same way. Something about the way she walked back inside, confident, unbothered, leaving me standing in the desert air like an afterthought, left a bruise that wouldn't heal. I told myself not to overreact. I told myself to give it time. But the way she flipped the whole thing on me made my concerns seem irrational, clung to me like fog. And fog doesn't clear right away. It sinks into everything. At first, it was subtle, just a quiet nagging in my chest that showed up when I looked at her. I'd wake up and see her scrolling through her phone, screen angled away from me. She used to hand me her phone without a second thought, ask me to check a text while she drove, or read off a grocery list she'd saved. Now, it never left her hand. She even started taking it with her when she showered. I like to listen to music, she said when I asked about it once, the tone in her voice sharp with implied judgment. God, don't you trust me? So I backed off. I stopped asking, but I started watching. It's a strange thing, how the mind works when you're trying to suppress suspicion. You become your own gaslighter. You talk yourself out of what you're seeing. You downgrade alarm bells into coincidences. You don't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband, the overthinker, so you make excuses. I made a lot of excuses, but the pattern kept forming anyway. First, there were the calls, always around 8:30 or 9 p.m. After dinner, when she'd excuse herself and step out back to get some air. Or she'd take them in the upstairs bathroom, door locked, faucet running. I could hear her voice, low and careful. Once I caught her laughing softly, followed by a long silence like she was listening. I knocked, and she immediately turned the faucet off and said she'd be right out. When she came downstairs, she was smiling, until she saw me looking at her. Then the smile vanished like a switch had flipped. Then there were the missing plans. She started canceling on shared things, brunch with my sister, movie nights, even a weekend trip we'd booked months earlier. Always last minute. I'm slammed at work. It's the end of the quarter, everything's crazy. You go ahead, I'll catch up later. I wanted to believe it. I really did. But I knew her patterns. She never used to cancel. Sometimes she'd come home later than expected, muttering something about traffic or impromptu meetings. Her makeup would be refreshed, lips reglossed, perfume newly spritzed. Not always, but enough that I started noticing. I'd be sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in, and she'd kiss me on the cheek with cold lips and eyes that didn't match the kiss. You good? I'd ask. Just tired. she'd say, dropping her bag like a mic. Her touch changed, too. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it wasn't soft anymore. It felt mechanical, distant, like she was checking a box. Like a nurse taking your blood pressure, no warmth, just routine. She used to squeeze my hand in the middle of conversations, rest her feet on my lap while we watched TV. Now her body stayed on her side of the couch, legs tucked in tight, phone always between us. One night, I reached out for her while we were lying in bed. Nothing aggressive, just my hand grazing her shoulder, a quiet invitation. She didn't pull away, but she didn't move toward me either. She just exhaled. "Not tonight, okay?" she whispered. I froze. "It's not you," she added, almost like it was reflex. "I'm just wiped." I nodded, but I didn't sleep. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, heart racing with questions I didn't want the answers to. I started keeping track of things, not in a crazy way, just notes, quiet mental logs. Monday, home late, showered immediately, took call upstairs. Wednesday, said she was going to yoga, came back without her mat. Friday, bank notification for a boutique wine bar downtown. Claimed it was a team celebration, but she didn't mention it until I saw the charge. I asked her that night, trying to keep it light. "Oh yeah," she said without blinking. "Last minute thing. You know how they are. No invite for spouses?" She frowned like the question offended her. It wasn't that kind of night. Everyone just wanted to blow off steam. I nodded, and we never spoke about it again. But the feeling kept growing. It wasn't a sudden realization. It was death by 1,000 whispers. I'd find receipts crumpled in her coat pocket for places she never mentioned. I saw the same name pop up on our shared credit card, Michael's Bistro, twice in the same week. I tried not to overthink it. Could be coincidence. Could be innocent. But his name lingered. Michael. The man from the party. The man whose hand never left her waist that night. One afternoon, while Lauren was at work, I opened the glove box of her car to look for the garage remote she said had gone missing. I found it, but next to it was a parking receipt from a hotel in Tempe. Date and time stamped at 11:07 a.m. on a Wednesday. She told me she was in an all-day seminar at the office. I stared at that receipt for 5 full minutes, fingers trembling. Then I folded it, tucked it into my jacket, and said nothing. I wanted to believe there was still a version of reality where I was wrong, where the hotel was for a team meeting, where the dinners were group outings, where the hand on her back at the party was harmless. I wanted that to be true so badly that I began rehearsing her excuses for her, writing her alibis in my own head so I wouldn't have to face the possibility that my wife, the woman I built my life around, had cut me out of hers. But the truth, I think, has a way of dripping through cracks no matter how hard you patch them. And the cracks were spreading fast. One morning, I made coffee and watched her from the kitchen as she got ready for work. She was standing in front of the mirror, curling her hair, soft waves, not her usual bun. She hummed quietly to herself, smiling at something on her phone. She wore a deep green dress I hadn't seen before, new, fitted. She spritzed perfume on her collarbone, then paused to study herself. "You look good," I said. She jumped, not realizing I'd been watching. "Thanks," she said, setting the bottle down. "Big meeting." I walked over, kissed her cheek. "You've had a lot of those lately." She laughed awkwardly. "That's what happens when your firm's understaffed." "Do I get to meet these coworkers sometime?" She froze just long enough for me to catch it. "Eventually," she said. "Let's just survive this quarter first." And then she left. That day, I sat at the dining table and pulled out my laptop. I opened our joint account. I filtered for transactions under her card. The name Michael came up again. Michael's Bistro. Thursdays. For weeks in a row. It was always Thursdays. My fingers were ice on the keyboard. I searched my calendar. She always had late client calls on Thursdays. Always came home after 9. Always smelled like new perfume. There was a moment, just one, where I actually laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was so obvious. So absurd. I had been blind. Willingly. desperately, because the truth was too ugly to face. But now it was looking me straight in the eye. The moment I stopped guessing and started knowing came quietly. No shouting, no confrontation, just numbers on a screen, lined up neatly, indifferent to the damage they were about to cause. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Lauren was out, supposedly at a team planning brunch. One of those phrases she'd started using so often it had lost all meaning. I was home alone, sitting at the dining table with my laptop open, pretending to work while my mind circled the same thoughts over and over. I hadn't planned to dig. That was the lie I told myself. But curiosity has a way of disguising itself as practicality. I logged into our shared bank account because a payment notification had popped up on my phone. Just a routine thing, I told myself. Couples do this. Transparency, right? The transaction list loaded slowly, spinning while mocking my patience. Then it settled, and my eyes immediately locked onto a name I recognized before my brain could catch up. Michael's Bistro. I stared at it, convinced I was misunderstanding something. It was a decent restaurant, sure, but not one Lauren and I went to. Ever. It wasn't close to her office either. The charge was for dinner, 2 entrees, 2 cocktails, dessert. Not outrageous, but intentional. I scrolled down. Another charge. Same place. Same weekday. 1 week earlier. Then another. And another. For Thursdays in a row. My chest tightened, and I felt my pulse in my ears. I clicked into the transaction details, hands steady in a way that surprised me. The reservation name was listed clearly, almost mockingly. Michael. Not Lauren. Not a business account. Michael. The man from the party. The room felt suddenly too quiet, like the house itself was holding its breath. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, waiting for denial to rush in and save me. Didn't. There was no alternative explanation left to cling to. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a mistake. It was a routine. I checked the dates against my calendar. Every one of those Thursdays lined up with something she'd told me. Late meetings. Client dinners. I'll eat there. Don't wait up. I could hear her voice in my head, casual and convincing, layered now with the weight of what I knew. I went deeper. I filtered the account by location. There were gas charges near a hotel in Tempe, parking fees, weekday afternoons, small amounts spaced carefully enough to avoid attention. She hadn't been careless. She'd been methodical. That hurt more than anything. This wasn't a lapse in judgment or a drunken mistake. This was scheduling, planning, a parallel life built quietly beside mine while I paid half the bill for it. I closed the laptop and sat there, hands flat on the table, trying to breathe. My body reacted before my emotions caught up. Tight throat, shallow breaths, fingers tingling like I'd touched something live. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't sad. I was hollow. When Lauren came home later that evening, I watched her through the kitchen doorway as she kicked off her shoes and dropped her purse on the counter. She looked relaxed, lighter than she ever did around me anymore. "Hey," she said. "Long day." I nodded. "How was brunch?" She smiled, easy and unguarded. "Productive. We're slammed for the next few weeks." I wondered how long she'd practiced lying without flinching. I didn't confront her. Not that night. I needed to see how far she'd go now that I knew the truth. So I played my role. Ate dinner. Asked about work. Listened while she talked about people whose names I'd never hear again. Later, after she fell asleep, I opened the laptop once more. I took *TS, downloaded statements, labeled folders. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I just documented my own erasure. At some point, around 3 in the morning, I realized something terrifyingly clear. She wasn't choosing between us. She already had. And I was the only one who didn't know. When I finally shut the laptop and stared into the dark, one thought settled heavier than all the others. This wasn't something I could unknow. The decision to leave came slower than the realization she had already left me emotionally. I didn't pack a bag in a fit of rage. I didn't scream, or slam doors, or demand explanations she'd only twist. I didn't even cry. By the time I walked out, I had made peace with the silence. That was the point. For weeks, I'd played the loyal skeptic, sleeping beside her, responding when spoken to, pretending not to hear her late-night messages in the bathroom. I'd become a ghost in my own life. The real me, whatever was left, was done waiting for permission to leave. I started small. First, I cleared out my essentials. The spare key I never used, my passport, a few work documents, the watch my dad left me. Then came the toiletries, my razor, my cologne, the vitamins she always teased me for forgetting to take. I moved everything out quietly, piece by piece, under the pretense of cleaning up. She never noticed. Some part of me was hoping she would. Hoping she'd ask, "Where's your stuff?" Just so I could look her in the eye and see if she cared. But she never did. She was too busy making late-night calls on speaker and quickly muting them the moment I entered the room. Too busy leaving her phone face down, charging in places she never used to. Too busy laughing at texts that didn't involve me. So I stopped waiting for a confession. I stopped waiting for a tearful apology or a clumsy attempt to make things right. She wasn't going to give me closure, so I decided to make my own. I booked a short-term rental across town. Nothing fancy, just clean and anonymous. A place with no memories. No ghost of her perfume clinging to the sheets. No framed pictures smiling lies at me from the hallway. I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friend, Drew, until the day before I left. We met for coffee at a quiet spot we used to hit in college, and I told him everything. Everything I'd uncovered, everything I'd felt, everything I was about to do. He didn't say much at first, just nodded. Let me get it out. Finally, he said, "You sure you want to just leave? No fight? No confrontation?" "I've already lost," I said. "This isn't about winning. It's about stopping the bleeding." He nodded again, more slowly this time. "You need a place to crash for a while, you got one." That meant more than I knew how to say. When the day came, I waited for Lauren to leave for work. She kissed my cheek distractedly, already half out the door, her phone buzzing in her hand. I just nodded, forcing the smallest smile. As soon as the garage door closed behind her, I moved quickly. Everything was ready, 2 duffel bags, 1 laptop case, and a manila folder filled with copies of the financial records I'd pulled. I left my house keys on the kitchen counter. I stood there for a moment, staring at them, those tiny, everyday objects that had once meant stability, security, routine. They were nothing now, just metal, just weight. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe her one. I didn't block her number either. That would have been too easy for her to twist into another excuse for victimhood. No, I wanted her to stew in the silence. I wanted her to open the front door after work and feel the stillness wrap around her like cold water. I wanted her to look around and realize I was gone, and more importantly, that I had left without a sound. The first night away felt surreal. The Airbnb smelled like hotel soap and lemon cleaner. No pictures on the walls. No hair ties on the bathroom counter. No echo of her voice calling from the other room. Just quiet. Undeniable quiet. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to feel something. Relief, anger, anything. But I felt nothing. Or maybe too much. Maybe it was all just tangled up inside me, waiting to hit later. I didn't know. All I knew was that I was out, and she didn't know where I was. That was the power shift I hadn't realized I needed. For the first time in years, I had the upper hand, not in a petty way, but in a deeply personal way. She couldn't spin the story, couldn't accuse me of overreacting or gaslight me into thinking I was fragile. There was no, "Why are you so tense lately?" or "You're imagining things," or "Just trust me." I was gone, and she had to live with it. The calls didn't start immediately. Took almost 24 hours. The first came around 6:45 p.m. The next day, I was eating takeout, watching a show I didn't care about, when the phone lit up. Lauren. I stared at it until it stopped ringing. 2 minutes later, a text. "Where are you? What's going on?" I didn't reply. An hour later, another call. Then another. I let them ring. By the next morning, the tone had shifted. "Can we please talk? Is this about Michael? Because if it is, you need to stop reading into things. You're being dramatic. We can fix this. Please." I kept reading them. Not because I was considering replying, but because I wanted to see the narrative unfold. I wanted to watch her fall apart without my help. I had been the fixer, the pleaser, the one always trying to find neutral ground while she rewrote the script to her benefit. But this time the stage was empty, and the silence terrified her. By day 3, the texts got longer, emotional, looped in memories, pictures of old vacations, snippets from happier times. The subtext was clear. If I won't respond to logic, maybe nostalgia will do the trick. But there was still no confession, no real accountability. It was all smoke. It was day 6 when she stopped texting. No calls, no emails, no notifications. Just radio silence. I should have felt triumphant, but instead I felt observed. She was waiting, not for me to come home but to break, to blink first, to give her something to twist back into her version of the story. That's what I realized, that even now, she was still playing a role. The problem was I'd walked off the stage. The final thread snapped when Drew texted me a **T someone from Lauren's work had posted on social media. A photo of Lauren at a restaurant, not Michael's bistro, but somewhere upscale. Seated beside a man who wasn't Michael either. Different guy. Same pattern. His hand rested on her leg under the table. Her smile was wide, relaxed. The caption read, "Finally got to meet her guy clinking glasses." Her guy. She hadn't even waited a full week to pivot. I stared at that image, not with rage, but with clarity. She hadn't just been unfaithful. She had been auditioning replacements, seeing which one stuck. Michael was just one option on a rotating cast. She didn't choose him over me. She just chose whoever wasn't me. That night, I deleted her number, archived her messages. I didn't block her. She didn't deserve that much clarity. Let her wonder what I saw, what I know, how much I pieced together. Let her sit in the absence of someone who finally stopped trying to convince her to stay. Silence, it turns out, has a longer echo than words ever will. After the flurry of missed calls and the initial wave of texts dried up, Lauren fell quiet. Completely. I thought maybe that was it. Maybe she'd moved on with whatever version of the truth she could live with. Maybe my exit didn't register the way I thought it would. But then, almost 2 weeks after I left, she found another way in. It started with a photo, not a message. No subject line, just a single image sent to my email. A picture of us from 3 summers ago, sitting on the porch of a cabin we rented in Oregon. I remember that weekend, how the rain had chased us inside, how we played cards for hours, how she told me, "This is the kind of life I want. Quiet, real." Back then, I believed her. In the photo, she's leaning against me, barefoot, wine glass in hand, smiling like everything in the world made sense. And I'm smiling too. Of course I am. That version of me didn't know how temporary everything was. I stared at the image for a long time, then closed the tab. The next day, she sent another. A video clip this time. Us dancing in the kitchen to some throwback playlist while making pancakes, my hands spinning her like we were 17 again. She didn't say a word, didn't follow up, just left it there like a breadcrumb. She wasn't apologizing. She was reminding. A few more days passed. Then came the package, shipped, not hand-delivered. No note inside, just a small black box. Inside was the leather bracelet I bought her the first year we moved in together. It had been missing for over a year. She claimed she lost it. I never believed that. Now here it was, pristine. Returned like an overdue library book. That was her opening move. By week 4, the strategy shifted again, this time from silent symbols to carefully constructed messages. "I keep walking past the hallway and expecting to see your shoes there. Dumb, right? There's a movie on tonight you would have made fun of me for crying at. I cried anyway. You once told me no one really leaves, they just stop trying. Are you really done trying?" Every message was loaded. Waited, crafted not to ask forgiveness, but to rewrite the story in real time. If she could pull me back in with sentiment, maybe I'd forget the betrayal. Maybe I'd rewrite the truth in a way that didn't paint her as what she was: deliberate, calculating, cruel in a quiet, curated way. I didn't answer. Not once. I knew what she was doing. She wasn't trying to repair the marriage. She was trying to regain emotional control. She wanted to see if I'd flinch, if I'd blink first. If the man she once rewired into compliance would still jump at the sound of her sadness. She underestimated what silence had taught me. One afternoon, I returned to the Airbnb and found an envelope slipped under the door. No postage, no address, just my name, scrawled in handwriting I'd memorized and no longer recognized. Inside was a single page, handwritten, the kind of thing she knew I'd read. Lauren didn't write letters often, but when she did, she knew exactly which parts of your mind she wanted to haunt. You've always been better at walking away than I was. You were always stronger in your quiet. I keep thinking about the night we lost the power during that storm and ended up talking until 3 in the morning. That was the first time I knew I could love you. I don't know how to be without you. I don't want to know. I don't even recognize this version of myself, the one who did what I did. I hate her. I'm trying to fix her. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I can't pretend I don't miss you in every part of this house. I still sleep on my side of the bed. I folded the letter neatly and placed it back into the envelope. Then I tucked it into the kitchen drawer with the bracelet and the old photos she kept sending. Not because I wanted to keep them, but because I wanted proof for myself that even after everything, she still couldn't say the one thing that mattered. I lied. I cheated. I chose someone else. There was no admission, no ownership. Every message, every symbol, every quote she repurposed from our life together was just a strategic play dressed in vulnerability. She wasn't reaching out because she was broken. She was reaching out because she was losing control. I knew it the moment Drew called me up, voice low and serious. "Hey," he said. "Weird thing. Lauren DM'd my sister." "What?" I sat up straighter. Said she wanted to talk, apologize or explain or something. Said she thought maybe I was making you cut everyone off, that this wasn't the real you. Like, full-on manipulation. I rubbed my forehead, already exhausted. Did she say what she wanted from her? Basically to convince you to meet her, to come home. Said she was scared you were isolating. There it was, the next tactic. If she couldn't reach me directly, she'd work the outer circle. Tug at the people closest to me, plant seeds of doubt. Paint herself as the one trying to reconnect, the one still fighting for love. Make me look like the unfeeling one. She was always good at flipping the scene. I thanked Drew for the heads up and hung up. A few days later, the messages slowed again. Not stopped, just less frequent. Like she was repositioning. And then came her last play. The one I knew was coming but still hit harder than I expected. She started using the past like a scalpel. She posted a photo on social media. Us years ago walking along the coast holding hands. Her caption. Some things never fade, no matter how far they drift. Comments came in. Friends and mutuals reacting with soft words and confused emojis. Most didn't know we had split. Fewer knew why, but Lauren did. She was counting on their curiosity, on their sympathy, on the chance that the narrative would tilt in her favor before I had a chance to write my own. She was building her version of the breakup story publicly while I sat in the dark, waiting for the moment she'd finally acknowledge reality. She never did. No apology, no full confession, just fragments, memories, manipulations. It wasn't about me. It never was. It was about maintaining power, narrative control, the ability to say, he left because he was distant, instead of he left because I betrayed him. But the real shift happened not when I ignored her, but when I stopped caring what she said at all. That was the cleanest cut. Not dramatic, not explosive, just the quiet realization that nothing she sent me, no matter how poetic, would ever touch the part of me she broke. She was speaking into a void. And for once, I was fine letting her voice disappear into it. Out of nowhere, Michael messaged me. He wanted to talk. Said things weren't what they seemed. We met and what he shared cracked everything open. Lauren had been feeding each of us different versions of the truth. Telling him we were separated. Telling me he was a harmless coworker. She wasn't in love. She was testing loyalty. Bouncing between narratives to see who would stay. Michael had been discarded just like me. We were pieces in her game, not people. I wasn't chosen or rejected, I was replaced in a rotation. During the divorce negotiations, Lauren smirked, assuming I'd lost. Especially after hearing I'd sold my company. She thought I'd walked away poor, bound to alimony. I signed the papers silently. An hour later, her lawyer called her in a panic. She hadn't realized what I really sold. Just a shell company. The real assets had been moved months ago. I walked away clean. She walked away thinking she'd won, until the truth hit. By then, I was already gone.